interested, I guess, in the way that everything British was kind of inculcated into the system.
For that, but I will try and get a few words.
Go for it.
The first time I knew who I was because I overheard my mother saying to somebody that they wouldn't have, we were Congregationalists, and they wouldn't have me at the Congregation school because I was too young. I was only about 4. But the Anglican school up the road from where we lived, they took me in. So I would walk to school just a corner away to St Leonard's infant school. The infants were down below. They weren't windows, they were sort of lattice work. You could see the thing coming in. And then they were the older classes upstairs. The only thing I remember about that school, because I didn't stay there very long, was this. In latter years, I learned the word avuncular. He was like a nice old uncle. And the teacher was a lovely woman called Teacher Zena. She had this lovely Douglas hair and a beautiful smile. But the thing is that I don't remember what I learned from her really, except that she was a nice person. But this man came and he's teaching us to sing. I always was singing before I was talking. My mother taught me, the first time I heard my own voice was my mother teaching me to sing, Jesus Wants Me for a Sunbeam. And so this man came and he said, I have got a fiddle, it is nice to see. Strings are down the middle, Father gave it me. Soon I learned to play it, holding well my bow. Listen just a minute, here is so and do. Hadn't got a clue what a fiddle was. And what was so and do is years after tonic solfa, but we sang it. And the other one was, I had a little dog, his name was Bobby Bingo. Bingo, B-I-N-G-O, B-I-N-G-O, B-I-N-G-O. Bingo was his name. And really that is all I remember having learned at St Leonard's. But I made one good friend. There was a little girl named called Waveney Ogle. And I don't know, we lived at the corner of Alexander and South Road in a building, because we didn't have a lot of money. It was a building with 3 rooms at the top. But when I went to Waveney's house on Brick Dam, it was a house, a cottage with a portico, and we were playing in the yard. But unfortunately, I lost track of her because we didn't live long in that house, in that building. And one morning I woke up in a house in Regent Street. In those days, adults did not consult with youth. You know, they don't consult. So all I remember is that I was living at this place and this next morning, we are in this house in Regent Street, and my mother is saying, and this is Mother Hart, and this is Sister Deli, and this is Brother Bertie, and this is Sister Frida. And we lived in this house. It was on Regent Street, was one of the commercial streets, had lots of shops. But inside was a house for the Horshops, lived in the front house, and we lived behind the Horshops. Because I remember playing with Christelle on the thing. And the next thing I know was, I remember seeing my sister crying because we had something called a shower. And we couldn't understand where this water was coming from. And I remember my Uncle John was visiting and my sister is crying because she couldn't cope with this shower. And then the next thing I know is that Mother Hart is holding my hand and we're walking along Regent Street, past Border Market, past the cemetery office, and at this school called Border RC. I didn't know what Border RC meant, but it was infant class, and the children, and you started with something called prayers. And they were all beating their breasts and saying, to my fa, to my fa, to my most grievous fa. And I beat my breast the same way, but I had no clue what it was all about. It's years after, when you got to it's mea culpa, mea culpa, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. It was through my fault. But you didn't get the T, it was through my fault. And I had a difficult time in that class because Mother Hart, in infant class, she was very strict. And I had visions of trying to write with a pen, with a very first, and the ink all over my pen, I couldn't handle it. And I was so relieved when I went upstairs then. It must have been first standard to teach, what's his name now? Teacher Bowman. Gentle, quiet, benign. And I learned two things from Teacher Bowman. Two big words from Teacher Bowman. Transcription. And it was that we had our slaves, and he would write the word and show us how to write the word on the blackboard, and then we had to copy how he wrote it. And that's how I learned to write. And then we had reproduction, but it had nothing to do with childbearing. It was that he would tell us a story, and then he would go over it without piece by piece. And then we would have to write it down. I wasn't 7 years old yet, and this is slate and pencil. But then you had to learn how to listen. And so I learned transcription, and I learned reproduction. We had to write a story for reproduction. Yes.
I just wanted to give us an example though of something like the type of the way that everything was so focused on Britain rather than on Guyana.
Well,
so you know, like that song.
It's English we doing. And the Fair Foster dog, it's really, I really realized it was an Irish one, you were Fair Foster, and it's his copybook, and it had things you had to, and they were all English. And this one was Roman Catholic.
But you remember you were telling me about that song, There'll Always Be in England. But there was never...
darling, that's still 1939.
Okay.
Because we haven't got that long. All right, let me hurry along.
Yeah.
I'll hurry along.
Yeah. Because I got to ask the same question.
I think that was Border RC.
Yeah.
Then after Border RC was Smith Memorial, Smith Memorial was serious work. But we did tables, and it was English hymns. And the Reverend Hall, and then you had to go to church. Now the Reverend Holy Bride, I think that church ought to be renamed Holy Bride Memorial Church, because all these other missionaries had us singing, Children of the Empire, come raise your voices, hail we our King and Queen today, one with the empire in love and in loyalty. Now we are voters, now we pray. From every part of our sovereign dominions, we raise our voices. God bless the car, God bless the flag that so greatly flies over us. God bless the empire, God save the king. Yeah. Now all missionaries from that, it was Holly Bryant, this white man, the right teacher, who wrote for us the song of Guyana's children and made us realize that we were Guyanese. And he wrote the words and the music. All the others wanted to sing Children of Guyana. Children of Guyana, you are brothers all. Children of Guyana, answer to the call. Let your voices linger. Lift your hearts and sing. God bless British England and God bless British King.
So nothing about Guyana then?
Nothing about Guyana, except for Holly Bryant.
Yeah.
Who wrote the song of Guyana. And that is, if you meet Guyanese of any generation, that is our unofficial national anthem. Onward, upward, may we ever go. Day by day, its strength and beauty grow, till at length we each of us may show what Guyana's sons and daughters can be. That church ought to be renamed Holy Bride Memorial Church. Right.
Can I just ask you though, in terms of like the monarchy, because I think there was a time that you...
Queen's birthday, 24th of May. This is Kingston Methodist now. Queen's birthday, we got to practice. And Johnny Brown was very particular. Every 24th of May, weeks before we practicing, dear land of hope, thy hope is crowned. God may thee mightier yet, thy sovereign brow well love renowned. Once more thy crown is set. Thine equal laws by freedom gained have ruled thee well and long. By freedom gained and truth maintained, thine empire shall be strong. And then you get the drum roll. Land of hope and glory. Kingston Medical School, I was 9. January 1936, I was 9. And John, well, you have to sing. He said, wait. How shall we extol thee, who were born of thee? Mightier, might and mightier shall thy crown be set. God who made thee mighty, made thee mightier yet.
Joyce, what was the one, because I remember I was so surprised when you told me about it, the Prince of Wales, walking down the road saying,
now let us get on to that. When I'm going home from Kingston Methodist, and I'm hugging myself with the alien, and George V is dying, and the king is sinking now, and the king is singing, so he died, George I died. And the Prince of Wales now, he is the I do not know where we got the names from, but I can see us, because Kingston Methodist School was like Lamahorse Street, the night in Kingston, and all of us dancing along. Edward Albert Christian George, Andrew Patrick David. Edward Albert Christian George, Andrew Patrick David. And those were the names of the Prince of Wales.
Okay, before I quickly move on to Sherlene Rudder, can I ask you to do the rap? Because you did that famous rap.
You've got to get it. Book one.
You have it in the in the West
Oh,
Indian
yes,
Reader.
look, you see this.
Because Auntie Joyce was telling me that they had rap long before we.
Long before rap.
Long before it was ever in.
Now, if you look at this page, it's a little boy, and this John Keats is on the end there, is it? But no, all right. So we used to rap it. Yeah. There was a naughty boy, and a naughty boy was he. He ran away to Scotland, the people there to see. Then he found that a girl was as hard, that a yard, was as long, that a song, was as merry, that a cherry was as red, that lad was as weighty, that fourth girl was as eighty, that a door was as wooden as in England. Then he stole, then he shoot, then he wondered, he stole, then he shoot, and he wondered John Keats. Nobody told us that John Keats was a poet. So I used to wait for the syncopation, and I think that I'm stole, then he shoes, and he wondered, he stole, then he shoes, and he wondered John Keats.
Well, I think Auntie Joyce deserves a round of applause. Auntie Joyce, I have to go.
Let me finish this one.
Okay.
Now let's fast wind. And I'm now in the Bishop's High School, sixth form, right? And we are doing Ode to Grecian Urn by a man called John Keats. When old age shall this generation wait, thou shalt remain in midst of other foe, a friend to man, to whom thou sayest, beauty is truth, truth beauty. That's all he know on earth, and all he need to know. I said, Jesus, the penny drop is the same man. It's the same man who wrote it out aloud. And it is said he used to write, they wrote a version, he used to write them to entertain his little sister. I'm writing down.
Okay, thank you, Auntie Joyce. Okay, Sherlene. So I don't know if you know, because Auntie Joyce sung that song to me, there'll always be an England or something like that. I don't know, I always think of Barbados, everybody talks about it as little Britain.
Little England, yes.
Little England.
Yeah. I remember bits of it, but not in such an entertaining way as has actually done.
Yeah.
There'll always be in England. I couldn't sing it for you. I haven't got her voice anyway. But it was definitely very, very British.
But did you ever learn anything about what it was to be Barbadian, if you like? Was there any history that was taught about?
None at all.
No.
It was strictly English. The education system was model of British. And they never taught us anything about Barbados at all. I hadn't got a clue about what it was to be a Bajan.
Right.
And
none of the
much
history.
later,
None of the history.
None of the history at all about Barbados.
Yeah.
We're only just learning what it is to be a Barbadian, a Bajan, as they say.
Yeah.
But everything was actually about the British. And in fact, when I came to England and started my nursing career, And of course, all of you who've done nursing before, they would always talk to you about the law and Houses of Parliament and what have you. My colleagues, my English colleagues, hadn't got a clue, but I knew all about the white paper, the green paper, and all that, because, you know, that was what my education was all about. Very, very, very sad, but we're catching up now.
But so, because I read Auntie Joyce in the book by Colin Grant, she said that she didn't even know about the history of slavery until she came here, I mean, I don't know, what was, how did they frame, like, Africa, for example? I mean, did you have any notion of...
I remember it was always in a negative way, anyway. And my first recollection of anything to do with Africa, I was always very, you know, cheeky, and we had an English gentleman who used to come to our school, and he would just stand there and watch us all play and what have you. And I said to him, "What are you doing here? You know, why are you here?" And then he introduced himself, and he turned out to be a relative of one of the radio presenters. So of course we all got excited, you know, this gentleman we were talking. And he said, you know, he just wants to see what children. I suppose in this day you would really question, you know, just standing by and looking at you. And so, you know, he said, you know, I'd like to come and talk to your grandmother, because I said I'm being brought up with my grandmother, and he actually came. And I have never seen my home so tidy. Oh my goodness me, my grandmother went to town, you know, she was clearing up and what have you. And I said, what's this nonsense? Why are you behaving like that? Oh, you know, they're very special people, the English, you know, very, very special. And of course, you know, she said, it's so nice that he would want to come and see us, really, because we are considered lower class, really. But she was so excited, and she put on everything, loved the meal and what have you. And then she said, I don't want to be associated with the African side of us, because, you know, again, they're even the lower class than we are. And I kept saying to her, but Gran, you know, these are our people. Why are you, but that's what she was taught, and she followed in that line. So, you know, it was very, very negative, all about Africa. Don't want to know anything about it. So it's very interesting to hear, you know, that our current Prime Minister is actually going to Ghana and places like those and recruiting nurses from these Ghanaian countries now, which is absolutely fantastic. I love that.
No, it's really interesting, because I was thinking about the two islands. Well, Barbados and Guyana, they couldn't be more different, really. As in a small island, predominantly African descended, and Guyana being so large, but very multicultural. With
the thing, you know, when you went to Barbados, up till about, I would say 1949. In Barbados, you were only black or white or mulatto. There were no other nationalities. Because Barbados was the first, it was like the first pattern for slavery, for the first slave state. And so, and we only became multi after the abolition, when Gladstone still wanted people to work on his estate, and we brought in Indians and all the others. So I went 1949, it would be in the 1940s, the boys from Harrison College came to Guyana to play with the boys at Queen's College. You know,
top school.
And there was, what was his name now? He became, how do I forget his name? He became Minister of Finance. Courtney Blackman, right? They came, and now we had lots of high schools, And this high school now was owned by a Chinese man named J.C. Long.
In the West
Oh,
Indian
yes,
region.
because
Okay. Because Auntie Joyce was telling me that they had rap long before we.
Long before that.
Long before that.
If you look at this page, it's a little boy, and this John Keith is on the end here. But no, all right, so we used to rap it. Yeah. There was a naughty boy and a naughty boy, but he ran away to Scotland. The people there to there he found that's a girl, was a car, that's a yard, was a dog, that's a dog, was a berry, that's a cherry, that's a cherry wasn't red, that man wasn't ready, that water wasn't baby, that door wasn't at the finger. Then he shoot, he stole, then he shoot, and he was a John Keats. Nobody told us that John Keats was important. So I used to wait for the situation, and I said that I'm still dead shoot, and he wondered, he's still dead shoot, and he wondered John Keats.
Wow, I think Auntie Joyce deserves a round of applause.
So that's part one. And now, in the British High School, sixth form, right? And we are doing Alteration or Earn by a man called John Keats. When all their shall this generation wait, thou shalt remain in midst of all a foe, a friend of mine, to whom thou sayest, beauty is truth, truth is beauty. That's all you know on earth, and all you know. Jesus, the penny drop in the same one. In the same one. And it is said he used to write, they wrote a version, he used to write them to entertain his little system. All right,
Okay, thank you, Auntie Joyce. Okay, Sherlene. So I don't know if you know, because Auntie Joyce sung that song to me, they'll always be in England or something like that. I don't know, I was thinking Barbados, everybody talks about it as little Britain.
Little England, yes.
Little England.
I remember bits of it, but not in such an entertaining way as actually done.
Yeah.
They'll always be in England. I couldn't sing it for you. I haven't got her voice anyway. But it was definitely very, very British.
But did you ever learn anything about what it was to be Barbadian, if you like? Like, was there any history that was taught about?
None at all. It was strictly English. The education system was model of British.
Yeah.
And they never taught us anything about Barbados at all. I hadn't got a clue about what it was to be a Bajan.
Right. And none of the history,
None of the history at all about Barbados.
Yeah.
We're only just learning what it is to be a Barbadian, a Bajan, as they say.
Yeah.
But everything was actually about the British. And in fact, when I came to England and started my nursing career, and of course, all of you who've done nursing before, they would always talk to you about the law and houses of parliament and what have you. My colleagues, my English colleagues, hadn't got a clue, but I knew all about the white paper, the green paper, and all that, because, that is what my education was all about. Very, very, very sad. You're catching up.
But so, because I read Auntie Joyce in the book by Colin Grant, she said that she didn't even know about the history of slavery until she came here. I mean, I don't know, what was, how did they frame, like, Africa, for example? I mean, did you have any notion of?
I remember it was always in a negative way, anyway. And my first recollection of anything to do with Africa, I was always very, cheeky, and we had an English gentleman who used to come to our school, and he would just stand there and watch us all play and what have you. And I said to him, "What are you doing here? Why are you here?" And then he introduced himself, and he turned out to be a relative of one of the radio presenters. So of course we all got excited. And he said, you know, he just wants to see more children. I suppose in this day, you would really question, you know, just standing by and looking at you. And so, you know, he said, you know, I'd like to come and talk to your grandmother. I said, I'm being bothered with my grandmother. And he actually came. And I have never seen my home so tidy. My grandmother went to town, you know, clearing up and what have you. And I said, what's this nonsense? Why are you behaving about home? They're very special people. Very, very special. And of course, you know, she said, it's so nice that he will want to come and see us, really, because we are considered lower class. But she was so excited. She put on everything, lovely and what have you. And then she said, I don't want to be associated with the African side of us because, you know, again, they're even the lower class than we are. And I kept saying to her, but Gran, you know, these are our people. Why? But that's what she was taught. You know, in that life. So it was very, very negative, all about that. Don't want to know anything about it. So it's very interesting to hear, you know, that our current Prime Minister is actually going to Ghana, places recruiting nurses from these Ghanaian countries now, which is absolutely fantastic. I love that.
No, it's really interesting because I was thinking about the two islands. Well, Barbados and Guyana, they could be more different, really.
Yes.
As in a small island, predominantly African descended, and Guyana being so large, but very multicultural. With
The thing, you know, when we went to Barbados, up till about, I would say 1949, in Barbados, before you were only black or white or mulatto, there were no other nationalities. Because Barbados was the first, it was like the first pattern for slavery, for the slave, before slavery came. And so, and we only became multi after the abolition, when Gladstone still wanted people to work on his estate and brought in Indians and all the others. So I went 1949, between the 1940s, the boys from Harrison College came to Guyana to play with the boys at Queen's College, you know,
School.
and it was, what was his name now? He became, how do I forget his name? He became Minister of Finance. Courtney Blackman, right? They came. And now we had lots of high schools. And this high school now was owned by a Chinese man named J.C. Lau, Chinese. And the boys were invited to dance at J.C. Lau. So when Courtney came back, I said, Courtney, how did you get up? He said, well, I don't know, because I never seen no Chinese girls, and I didn't know about no Chinese girls at all. He had never seen a Chinese. No, he had never seen no. And he said, oh, I don't know, I never seen no Chinese girls. Courtney became Minister of Finance. I still have a banknote with his name on it. You know, so that this is how we
Barbados and Guyana seem to have had a very close relationship.
yeah.
I was only told when my mother died that her father was actually from Guyana. My grandmother never talked about it, but that's what
I know a lot of the civil servants used to go on holiday in Barbados, but of course there was a lot of migration from Barbados
That's
to
right.
Guyana.
I was told that, you know, the pan boilers came from.
We always thought about it was like a Cotabawan, because they were so English. Very English. And with all, it was, I think when 1949, there was a Caribbean Rangers conference, you know, dining. if you be a brownie, then 11 guys, and then you become a ranger.
Right.
And so this is the first time I left home to go to Barbados. Myself and Whitney Harper, and they were rangers from all of the islands, and she was, and so and the Griffith family, they were a cricketing family.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and we camped on the campus, right? It was called Empire Ranger Week, that was it. And we had a song to go with it. But then after the weekend, we were billeted with various families, and I stayed with the Griffith family. But there was strict skin color apartheid. The Mariners Club, you couldn't join the Mariners Club if you weren't by the right complexion.
My mother-in-law, my mother-in-law, my brother's mother-in-law who was Guyanese.
Yeah.
And she, I know you might know the Eitel family, but she always used to say that, and of course they were all different complexions within that family, but they used to put a brown paper bag up on the wall that was a particular complexion, and anyone who was darker than that paper bag wasn't allowed to go into that party. It was such
It was skin coloration. And so that if you draw, and they say, if your brother draw brighter than you, he can go what you can.
But so can I just ask you, because we were talking earlier about, when Du Bois says, the problem of the 20th century, the problem of the colour line. How did those kind of prevailing dynamics of race and colour and class actually impact you as a child?
As I said before,
I'm sorry. Come here.
All right. I was saying before that I grew with my grandmother.
Yes.
My mother, 16 years old, and she decided she would go to Bridgetown and leave me with my grandmother, which I was very happy about. And I will always remember my grandmother saying, as far as she's concerned, there are only two races in Barbados. There's us, the poor, and there's the white who got the money and the wealth. But again, she drive into me, the way to get out of this is through your education.
That's right.
Education. That was her motto. And so, we worked towards that. I can remember when I went to high school much later, there were two sisters actually, English roots. And I couldn't quite understand why we saw them Monday to Friday, but we never saw them again. They just disappeared into the wild Barbados. And we were told, well, that's the way English.
So you could go to school with them, but you couldn't be
go to
social,
school,
you
but
didn't
there
have
was
any
no social interaction. And that was, not only with them, but, parents and what have you had no connection at all with, with children of Negro slaves, what have you. They lived for themselves, kept the money to themselves, and that's when I understood what my grandmother was trying to say to me. But don't let it get you down, she says, you gotta work hard, and move on.
Yeah. But so that leads me to wondering, how did you did you know what you wanted to be as you were growing up? I know you went into nursing, but you said because of your...
I went because of my grandmother's mother.
Yeah.
Now, she was the first time I heard anybody refer to Mammy. I think it's a word that's used in African dialect all over Africa. But she was a midwife in the community. And I could see from a child how she was in the community and everybody loved Mammy.
It was quite a respected position, I think, to be a midwife.
Yeah. She was never without a tray of fruit and vegetables and what have you, because, to deliver a child, she never charged anything, just the basics. I always remember her with a list of, we used to use the flour bags, her sheets, really, and she would always have them wash them, put aside, and waiting for the call. For example,
what would you do with the flour bags?
Yeah, she washed them, cut them in the shape of a towel.
Okay.
Because when the mothers came, to have the children.
That's what they were
cows
using?
and what have you, and that's what they were using
Yeah.
to mop up, all the stuff and what have
Yeah.
you. So she, and I saw all of that as a little girl with her, and I decided that I wanted some of that. She was very well respected. Everybody loved her. Everybody used to come and bring her food. They had no money, but to pay for, to have some sort of monies, I suppose. Instead of having money, they would have some.
Yes, so people would give you things in
like
kind
that.
for the work you did.
It was
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So that really inspired me. I thought, one day I want some of this really. So much later on, when I went off to school, I actually, when I was coming up to 16, my parents were here. They preceded me to this country. But I saw the advert. You were asking about the information. I saw the advert in the Evening Standard. And I thought, yes, I want to go. I knew what I was going to follow my parents. Go, what are you going to do when you get there? And I thought, yes, then maybe I could have my nursing training.
So tell us a little bit more about the advert. Was it saying, or what did it say? I mean, was it asking people to come to
Yes, they were
Brazil or?
nurses.
Yeah.
They were short, NHS, short in this institution, all the NHS, and we want people to come along. And they were very, very, very clear. They wanted you, if you had 4 or 5 O levels, as the education system, we all took GCEs. If you weren't smart enough to get to GCE, you had London Community LCC, I think, or kind of an intermediate exam. But if you wanted to go for SRN, the minimum requirement was 4 to 5 O levels.
Right.
Very clear, very specific. But I will tell you a little more when we get to the actual paperwork.
Okay.
Because that presented quite a problem. Because I didn't know what it was.
Right.
But when I got here and got to Kent, met up with the sisters and the matron, it was another story. I think one of the problems that we find is because a lot of us have got English names. I think they may have assumed that the name, I was Frederick at the time. That's my name. And so when they saw Frederick, I assumed that they thought maybe we were English. But once I got to the hospital, it was another story. But, my mother sorted that out, and I'll tell you all about it much later.
But so there wasn't, so I'm curious now as to why, do you know what the kind of push factors were that led your parents to come here?
Unemployment.
Unemployment. So there's a problem with employment in Barbados.
Around the 30s, I think they call it the hungry 30s. About 1 in 3, 1 in 3, 5 people were unemployed. And really, my mother left me with my grand and went to British Guiana. But of course, when they started to advertise with London Transport, they wanted people, of course, to come along. My mother said, look, I want to make a life for all of us. So she decided with my dad that they would come to England. But there was no work, in at that time. The hungry 30s, I think they call it. It was tough.
Yeah. I always find it interesting because there's that narrative that we call and they keg, in Waterloo Station. But, it really obscures the reality that in much of the Caribbean, people were really destitute. And yeah, I mean, I know they had the Moyne Commission, which was such a devastating report that they actually didn't even release it until something like 5 years later or something, in the mid-40s. But yeah, it's not a story that's often told.
It was actually very tough because that grandmother that I love, passing, and I still do now, but she told me a story, and if you study the reports that came out of the Caribbean at that time, her boyfriend you know, he got killed in this uprising. You know, Barbadians were considered very compliant and, you know, pretty easygoing, but, you know, things got so bad that the natives decided they had enough of it. And they wanted food for their children. So he was, I don't know if those of you who know a little bit about Barbados as well, there's a family called Wars in St Lucie. Oh, I shouldn't use that name, should I?
That's all right.
You can take that out. But they had a massive plantation. And the father of her first son, he was actually killed. And all he was simply doing is cutting the potatoes from the ground. Food for his
Because he was
family,
hungry,
because there was a
yeah.
brother. And then there was me, there were two of them. And my mother had gone off to British Town. And, you know, there was no food around. So what are you going to do? And, you know, she always says to me she hates helicopters because that's where they were shooting from. And my uncle has never
So he was
from.
shot because he was
Yes,
taking
he was,
food from right.
He was in the town, you know, trying to get some food for all of us.
Yeah.
And, you know, they had no patience or no understanding of what it is to be hungry. And this was 1930s. Pretty awful.
Yeah. So, Auntie Joyce, and it come to you now because I want to get a sense of obviously with the nurses you could see that there was employment in England because they were advertising, but they were never advertising for teachers. So I'm just wondering how you chose teaching as a vocation and by chance.
Everything was, with me, everything was by chance. Because I qualified as, I came to the puberty, went to Bishop High School, and because to become a teacher in Guyana, you have to do first pupil teacher appointment. Because at 16 or 17, you can do pupil teacher appointment exam. And if you pass that, you can be appointed to a school to become a pupil teacher, so like an apprentice teacher. And then if you didn't get to high school, because high school was not free, you did first, third class teacher's exam, second class teacher's exam, first class teacher's exam. So you can get into teaching through that route. If, like me, you got a secondary education, and fortunate, that was true too, because I didn't have money to go to Bishop High School. I mean, you know, your father had to be a whatever. In addition to the local, in addition to the children of the white children of the administration, the native whites also had big money, so they could pay. The less.
Just so that people understand, Bishop High School is like one of the elite schools in
At
Guyana.
Bishop High School, you
Yeah.
have the daughters of the director of education, the daughter of the colonial secretary, they white, right? Archdeacon prostitutes white. The establishment children, that is the only place they could send it. But then, if government wanted to give you a scholarship or a thing, that's the only place they could send you because they had no one, they didn't have their own secondary school.
Right.
So I did not get a outright scholarship because I could never do the songs right. But at one stage, government put its hand in his pocket and said, look, we got a little bit of change. We could give a free place. So if you got an outright scholarship that year, you went to Bishop in 1939, September. That September, I spent at a brand new school where I met Daphne Steele. And I spent that first term because I didn't have any ideas about Bishop. But like I said, he had a little bit of small change. So they gave four free places, and that's how I went to Bishop. Well, we went through, the school came with school certificate, and fortunately for me, I went higher. I did the counterpart to A-level, it was called London Higher School Certificate. And when I got that, if you want to teach, you can get a third class provisional. So when I started teaching as a people teacher, I went in a third class. I didn't have to go through the whole thing. And I think I felt very sad about that because the woman that when I started at Broad Street, the young woman, the teacher that I was assigned to go with, she had come through this. And I learned so much from her. Because I learned class control, I learned how to teach, I could get. But then, as you got older, you got a class on your own. So I had a full standard class on my own. Activities were still this way, you use the West Indian reader and studying arithmetic. And then the headmaster wanted the children, Mr. Gordon, I had half of her folder, and this other lady had the other half. And she was much more accomplished than I was. And he wanted to know if the girls could learn something. So she taught me how to knit, so that I could teach the girl how to knit, and she taught her, now I can make you a pair of socks down to her. And then training college. So this man who turned out to be my father's best friend, he was an education officer. Why are you not in training college? So I had to go and do teacher training. We finished teacher training in 1949 and 1951. And this is where Ilroy came in, because when I qualified, even if you got the knowledge, but you still don't get your first class. And it was, I had to travel, I had to cross the Demerara River. I had to leave my house, get a boat, cross the river, and then travel 7 miles to the school. And so I would come home on weekend, and I'd go to Barnet weekend and say, I've got to do that, and she would show me. She was never, she was always very generous with her knowledge. And I would go to, and that's how I would pick up something to go to do my ASON class. Well, then after that, by that time,
how much older was Beryl Gilroy from you? She was.
It was she was slightly older than we were. Yeah, she was older than we were, because when myself and baby happened there, we were 17, 18.
Yeah.
She could have been in her 20s because she had already trained as a teacher.
Okay.
She was already a trained teacher. So
but I guess as well, I mean, at least in Guyana at that point, you would have seen other black female teachers.
Yeah.
In Guyana, in that period, you would have seen other female black teachers.
Yes.
Yeah, so there were other people who were already.
Yes. So I owe her a lot. But then government used to send nurses for training. But they never thought of sending teachers until 55. And then there was an advertisement to go to do, and so it worked out then that myself, Agnes Jones, and two others, myself and Agnes Jones, were sent to the Institute of Education, University of Durham, but the institute was basically in Newcastle upon Tyne. So I had my first winter in 1955 in Newcastle upon Tyne, and that.
But so just to stop you for a moment, the advert was inviting people from Guyana to apply to go to those.
And I nearly didn't get it. That friend of mine named Willie Owen, we met up again. And I've got to tell you, we met up again, and I saw it and they thought, really turned about my house, and she said, did you see the advertisement? I said, yes. Have you applied? I said, no. She said, why you haven't applied? But Claudia Brown didn't mind me, and she said she applied. And you know about Claudia Brown, and if she got it American to apply, please, baby, please. I got stuff. I didn't know the word there. My mother, and she was little like that, you know. She said, yeah. As soon as she left, I got on my bicycle to come to you. The point is she could apply herself because she was as qualified as I was. And so I qualified. I said this up, and from my experience, I was chosen. And so we came, myself and Agnes, went to Barbados.
But so did the Guyanese government cover the cost of this?
Yes, government said to you. Government cost. The thing is the Commonwealth, you know, where the Commonwealth versus steel.
So but you would have had to apply for your passports and everything.
The first time I came home.
Right.
Yes, for the passports, everything. And when we went by plane to Barbados to get the boat to, and in those days we had to get it. They weren't built up. We had to get a little boat to get on the boat in the river. Yes. Yeah, you couldn't. Nowadays you can do it, but in those days, when you left there, it was a little. The boat is out there. And you had to get a little boat.
Oh, to get to the bigger boat.
Yeah. It was Fratelli Grimaldi, an Italian boat, because we were going by Genoa. We got to Genoa, and then we got to, what was it, the Folkestone? And then you had to cross over and come to Waterloo Station or something like that.
Yeah, and then get a train from Waterloo.
And then we were put up in this hostel in London for a little while before we went to Newcastle. I'm on this train to Newcastle. In those days, it was a civilized country. You ordered lunch. Your lunch on the train. And then got up with this little white boy. And he is admiring how I'm using my knife and fork. Anyway, so that was a nice.
What was your first impression though of
Well, then you're right. This is 1955, when it was the coldest winter since 1947. The snow was out on the ground and there were snow plows getting rid of the snow. And there's no central heating. And it's a little gas like in your room. And your hands are cold because you don't know where you're playing. And I sat through the red shoes. In those days, it was continuous showing in the cinema. So I sat through the red shoes. I don't want to go get that. But it was friendly. When we got there, the mayor invited the new one to tea. And it was so friendly that my bank book was with the girl at Barclays Bank. And if I wanted something, I would go to her, guess how much she wanted to go. Go up to Bradley Street, get some. So much so that when I left Newcastle, I went to London, I had to write an answer, please send my book because I forget. It was that friendly. And everybody was pet, everybody's pet. Lovely morning, pet. And I didn't rain coming because it's so good. I used to turn off my umbrella. Didn't know that that was the record existed just because of the sky. You know, but then what happened after that? I was trying to do the degree by correspondence course because London was the only university that gave an external degree. And I did not remember that I had told Mary Atkinson, who was in charge of the institute, that I was planning. I was coming straight home. She remembered to me and said, but you did say you were doing, why don't you get your government to give you leave and you can go to London? And I blessed her. And so that's what I did. So I came to London, and she had this extra one, the certificate. And it was the London County Council, and that's how I started teaching.
But did other Guyanese travel with you? I mean, when you went for the training, who was in the?
There were four of us. Myself and I just went to the institute. The men went elsewhere. I think Master Hines was art, so he would go. We didn't know where they went, but Agnes and I, we did a course of further professional study in the education of young children. Where we went to one school, we had to do loads of school. And this teacher, and this teacher Joyce said, and they were backward and unimportant, and we standing there. When you know I'm circular. So when we got back, I said, we were there, we could have asked her, how are we backward and unimportant? He was swimming around with his academic gown on here, he said, that was, and we were asking for teaching. And this is when I started teaching in London. And I used to teach in the day.
But so what year is this now?
56, September 56.
And you were teaching in London in 56?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I didn't realise that. I knew it was actually.
Because what happened was, thanks to Mary Atkinson, I came to London and I'm looking for a job so that I can teach and go to night school at Northwestern Polytechnic. I turned up at the interview with the London County Council, and the one said to me, but Ms. Trotman, you have a certificate of education. But I told them, I said, look, I want the job because I want to study, because I want to get my degree. Why do you want to get a degree? You got to say, I said, I don't know if it's a deadpan way, which I don't know, but I just said to them that I want to do things in my country. If I say this without a degree, they won't listen. And I would say exactly the same thing with a degree. And there was this man, they started laughing. And they said, very well, Mr. Trotman, we'll put you near it too. so that we could get it and they organized. And this was a nice country. And so they put in area 2 so I could get the bus, what we was in our prison politics. And the library, any book I wanted from that library was get it. So, and that's how I got a degree. And I taught them at an infant school, and then I asked them to put me on supply so I could see other schools. They did. And I ended up in St. Mary's Church of England School Maryland for boys, girls, and infants. So I had infants. And I had a little bright girl in my class, and my tongue in my cheek, I taught them in Scotland days of color during the rain, they're all white. And they were saying, Miss Trotman, it is my turn to be the colored girl. And they shut her looking at it. Until Jill Lovett is going on, the children nearly fell down. She suddenly realized what she was feeling. She stopped her talking and said, you were colored, get in the ring. And the other was ring. No, she took me out, I got caught out. I'm sure she went to university somewhere. She was bright. And so I left that.
Okay.
And then because I got the degree eventually, so I did my stint of teaching between 56.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you went back to Ghana.
And then I went home and did teacher training for 10 years. And then came back to England permanently for the boys' comprehensive. I didn't go to the East End.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's come back to you, Sherlene. So tell me about your experience. Because you saw the advert. Can you just talk us through the process of moving from Barbados to England to do that training?
Saw the advert, sent a copy of it to my parents, actually, and I'm so glad that I did something like that. In discussion with my administrators at school, they said it was a good idea. And I knew that they would be sending for me eventually. And I said, look, I'm coming to the nursing, and this is the establishment that I'm going to be having. So I got to London, and my mother had left when I was probably about 11. And I didn't recognize her at all. Because when she left, only a youngster, I mean, she would have been in her late 20s, really. But I saw this person looking around, looking around, and I thought, that looks vaguely, that it could be her. But quite obviously, she had lost a lot of weight in Paddington, because that's the one thing she was saying to me. Because every day although I loved my grandmother and I was with her from the time I was 2, I really wanted to come to England. So excited, and I would always talk to my mum. When are you sending for me? And one thing she said to me, this is not what we think it is. Better stay home and have your education, and I will send for you at some point. But definitely this is not the England that they all purport was so lovely and everything was so rosy. I'm not going to send for you much later. I will do, and of course, coming up to leaving school, that's when we started to get things in motion. But as I said, she was so, plump and what have you, and I got to, she brought me home to Paddington, that's where they were, she and Dad, and they stationed everything so that I would have a few days before I enrolled in the school. But I had all the paperwork, and that actually saved me by having all the paperwork, and I would send it to my mom. This was correspondence. Anyway, we had a couple of days in London where they took me around and showed me bits and pieces of London. And then, come on, it's time to go and start your PTS. I got there, and I don't know if you guys, anybody in here a nurse apart from myself? When I got there, at the matron, and it was like, well, you've got to do another exam. because, you know, we had the paperwork say that I would come into enroll as a state registered nurse. Oh no, something has gone wrong here. And I didn't understand that there was a difference between the state registered nurse and the state enrolled nurse, right? And so they said, you've got to do, if you want to do this state registration, you have to have another exam right here. You know, they're not having you. So my mother, who was very, you know, she was really tuned up and determined. She said, no, I've got the paperwork here. And I'm not leaving my child here until I see that she's going to be admitted to be a state registered nurse. Oh, no. So they went and they called somebody senior to the matron, and this is the problem. And you know, my mother stood her ground, and at the end of it, you know, they took me on board. I went home, but they kept an eye on me. They thought, this one is trouble. Because much later on, it was so awful. And I was down in Tunbridge Wells, so you could well understand. I don't think there were many people, there seemed many people like me.
Quite a posh area.
Oh, very posh. Very posh. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
But yeah, they said, and I stayed enrolled, and Mum said to me, look, I'll do a deal with you, Sherlene. You know, you do work hard, study well, and I'll give you a trip to Barbados. Then you'll complete your 5 years. State registration 3, state certified midwife this year. And it was another 1.5. It was 2 years at the time, but I spotted somewhere in Southampton where you could just do the 1 year.
So the SRN took 3 years.
The SRN took 3 years.
What was the difference then with the SEN? How many years was that?
That was
Just 1 year?
I think it was a year and a half.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you have to have a hierarchy.
Oh,
Well, yeah.
And don't make any difference.
No, and you're reminding me of, well, I won't say the name, but somebody else that we know who's of the same generation as Auntie Joyce, who came here and did her SRN qualifications and actually came top for that year,
Right.
but they just couldn't accept that a black person could have come top. So they just informed her, well, we're really sorry, but we're just going to demote you down. So that's what they used somebody else. Yeah. So
they used to come.
But also,
Mum said they used to already come with their qualification.
yeah.
So and she said that. So I said, Mum, why? Sorry to hijack you. Well, why did you leave if you were already qualified as an SRN? Guyana's so relatively young.
Yeah.
And she said because there was no progression,
Yeah.
because it was Guyana was Commonwealth. She said after you reached a certain stage, it was all these white matrons of who some didn't even have qualifications.
Yes,
They got in by default by the colour of their skin and all this. And then the ones that did leave and go to England as SRNs, they got totally demoralised because of the systems, and then ended up working on the levels onto what they were qualified in.
Well, this is interesting because this other lady who became an SRN and got the qualification never actually got a job that was for that position. She always worked at SEN levels, cleaning out bare hands, doing all that kind of thing, but never got the opportunity to actually.
Because when her mom came, she was already a qualified midwife at Public Hospital Georgetown.
Really young, she left school and went straight into nursing.
But she still had to do their exam because they just take short of it.
I said I had a very tough time because having got involved with that, or whatever it was, of the admission, I have always had the feeling that, you know, they're keeping an eye on this one. And I didn't recognize it for what it was. It was only much later on, my mother said to me, she said, I didn't recognize it either. I didn't know the difference between SRN and SEN. My mother came here and worked at John Lewis's.
The SEN also shot.
But yeah, and they don't want you, but she said, I knew there was a principle there. They have got all the paperwork, they said they would, and that's all they wanted in the advert. 4 or 5 O levels, and you had those. They accepted you, I've got to live in here. Now you've come, they're telling you, you have to have another exam.
No, it's interesting because I think when we had COVID, you could tell where the black community had kind of been placed, whether it was in places like mental health that people didn't want to be in, or intensive care units, or just all the kind of really menial positions that they've been traditionally kind of pushed into. But then you ended up, so how did you end up, you became a sickle cell thalassaemia nurse?
In fact, the sickle cell issue, we'll talk about that in a minute. I ended up my career as, and I'm sure they haven't taken on yes, things like this there, at the genetics department of the genetic counselor at the Kennedy Golden Center in Norfolk Park Hospital. And that's where I finished my nursing. But, you know, after I finished, I started the SRN. From there, I went on to Southampton, became a state certified midwife. Came back, and because I always knew that I wanted to do something for community. So I came back and I worked around with other, just getting experience. And then from there, I went and I thought, yes, I want to be a health visitor. This is a community in this country. So I want to do that. And I did that and came to Harlesden, 1971. And that's where I picked up on the sickle cell issue. Now that was very, very, very interesting, really, because I had trained as a state registered nurse, and it was certainly not on the agenda. I had trained as a midwife, Southampton, that had quite a diverse population, so you would have thought that you would see somebody with sickle cell, but never heard anything about sickle cell on the agenda. None of those ladies were screened. And of course, you know, when I came to Harlesden, within a day or two, the GP that they tell you that you have to work with a specific GP in the health center. Within a day or two, he says, I'm sending these people to see you. And God bless him, he was a lovely man. And I said, you know, what is this? And he said, these people have got a condition called sickle cell. I said, what? Anything about sickle cell? You know, and I'm so glad, he said, that you've come and joined us, because we're in the middle of Harlesden, and Harlesden has got a vital and energetic population of therapies. And, you know, they're just desperate to see somebody like you, Sherlene. So I'm sending. The next day after he said that to me, I came on duty, and there was a whole line of people waiting outside, you know, to see me. Oh my God, I don't know what to say, what to do. The other thing, I have been asked to join the consultant pediatrician on the ward, and another very nice English pediatrician. He said, I want you to meet this young lady. And their name is all over. I want you to meet her. I said, what is it? He said, you know, she actually got up one morning, Mother's Day, and found that one of her brothers had died on Mother's Day, sickle cell as well. And I said, I don't know anything.
Not much research had been done on sickle cell at that point.
No. I mean, he gave me a massive book called Man's Hemoglobin. Lord of mercy. How am I going to get the hold of this? But very fortunately, the local consultant hematologist, again in another couple of days, weeks, or what have you, she sent out something to all of us in the community. said, look, my beds for all my patients are being taken up by all these young people who've got sickle cell. Most of the time, they don't need to be in, but they're frightened. They really need somebody to talk to and understand what they're going through, because their education is lagging, because they're absent from school so many times. You know, pain, as you all know, is a very common feature of the condition, so they want to talk to somebody about that. And that's how I got involved with the sickle cell, because my other colleague, we decided that we would try to get some understanding, and she being what we called in those days the in-service training officer, the consultant asked her if she would arrange a study day for all of us in the community, because we can't carry on like this. You know, poor consultant hematologist, she's got no beds for hemophiliacs and all the problems. So we got to do something about this. So they set up a study day. Of course, I went on, and you know, when you're young, you really want to change the world, don't you? So I got very involved. But what are we going to do? Where are we going to get? I mean, the study day gave us the very basics about sickle cell, but we needed much more information. And she and I went to America.
So can I just ask, because I know you and Elizabeth Anionu worked together.
She was our in-service training officer.
She was your in-service training officer. Okay, so you went to America
And we
with
went to
her.
America with her.
Okay,
And brought back
I see.
all of the information.
Right.
It was a wonderful experience because we didn't realize that there were so many people with sickle cell in America as well. And one of the presidents, you know, and I won't say any name, but you know, he had been considered quite a role politically. But the one thing that he actually did was to invest a lot of money in the sickle cell movement, because all these young boys were hanging around. They couldn't join the army, they couldn't join the Air Force, because a lot of them had sickle cell trait. And because nobody knew what the sickle cell trait, they just assumed that that was the condition as well. So, you know, but the greater organization in New York, I think it was called, they, you know, produced a lot of leaflets and a lot of information and training, and she and I grasped this training and came back to this country. She and I were the first two nurses to be appointed sickle cell counselors. And and so it went on from there. What she did, she concentrated on, because she got the NHS, we got the NHS to invest some money. So Brent, who was enormously useful to us as a young team, they set up the Sickle Cell Center in Brent, the very first one in this country.
So it's 1979.
1979,
yeah.
that's right. So she concentrated on that. I had my job as a health visitor in Brent as well. So we thought, we tried to set up a charitable organization, because there are things that you can do with a charitable organization. You can't go raising money and what have you if you are a member of the staff. And so we set up the society. That's where we had major discussions. Sorry?
They just take a set of thing and grow
Oh, I mean, as I said, Brent was the very first one. But because of Brent and the experiences that we have, most of the community groups now, they've got sickle cell centers.
So that I understand this, you and Elizabeth then were the founding members of this. And without you, we wouldn't now then have all of these amazing sickle cell centres across the UK. That's
a very nice lady, she's still alive. She met a lot of our sickle cell patients in St Lucie Hospital. where she took their bloods, Millicent, and Millie, Elizabeth, and myself. We are the three people really who work with the sickle cell movement and further all along the centres of training, and, you know, all the good things that have come out of us really fighting very, very hard. And it was a tough fight, it still is now.
Yes.
But because, you know, in those days, we had prime ministers in this country who were saying, oh, well, there's no society, you've got to look after yourself and things like that, you know. But we really fought extremely hard. And some of our own people too, you know, they didn't want to know. I've got to understand what about stigma and you know, how people feel about those sort of things and why are you going around spreading those information about us having this disease.
Well, you know, I can understand that because I remember when my mum fell ill while we were living in Cambridge, and she went to Albrook's Hospital, but they always used to treat her as though she had some strange foreign disease, and they would keep her in she always got her own room because they didn't want her to be in before she was they thought she had some, you know, so. Yeah, there was definitely a stigma around being black and illnesses. People always thought you were bringing something nasty to the UK. But
So when we were at school, this would be the 1940s, yes, we were at school with a girl called Carol Crow, and she was delicate. When she rode a bike, they had to put things on her according to. So we all suffered from malaria. So we thought it was malaria. But her grandfather, who ran Crow's Drug, so he was a chemist, he said he was sure it wasn't malaria, but he didn't know what it was. It is when she got married to an Englishman, and she had her first son, the doctor, Frank Williams there, it was he who died. She would get ill, and they were going to hospital, and all they did was do a blood transfusion because they didn't know what to do with her. Until Frank Williams diagnosed it as sickle cell. And when they came to England, she was put under the School of Tropical Hygiene, and so the doctors would monitor her. And I think she was the one that the other she survived the longest. She died in, she was autistic. The way Colota died, she still showing sequence on somebody who had drink. But when she had an episode, she did pain. And she'd have to go to hospital. And it's only when she came to, they never really heard about sickle cell, so we didn't know anything about it. But she survived.
One of the things people usually say to me, you know, have you got anybody in your family? Why do you choose this condition? And I say, you know, I think it chose me really, because, you know, I happen to be at the right place at the right time. But I also remember in my days in St Lucie with my grandmother, we had a little playmate, relative, and we thought she was designed as being sickly.
Yeah,
Remember that word? Very skinny, very, very thin, and she wasn't like us running around and playing and going crazy.
yeah, sometimes stunts your growth as well.
Oh, yeah, we were very skinny. I always seemed, you know, always seemed to be in pain. And she eventually died. And the word that went around was, well, somebody's done something.
Somebody.
You mean like they put over
It's only much later now when I trained in the center and what have you, one of her sisters went to New York and trained, and that's when she realized that the problem in the family is sickle cell.
Right.
They always said, she's so sickly.
So, Auntie Joyce, I want to come back to you now and talk about this school, this Scott and you know why? Because I saw some very shocking words in this.
Yeah, I said, the whole nobody called me because I didn't put any dashes. I said it in full for sure.
You said it in full. So tell us.
Say it again, just say it again, just say bleep, bleep, bleep. We don't like to hear you say
I
Because when I got this contact, my mom couldn't even form those words.
No. So can you imagine when you're
No, but it, so I'm tempted to read it
But
from the book.
that's why I never told him, because I wanted to get the same shock that I had.
I have to say, the
It's a
first time I heard Auntie Joyce say those words,
Yeah.
I was on the
It
floor.
was
I was so shocked. So this is the story. So tell them the story. You've now gone to study at school.
I had a very serious illness. My brother put me on a plane and said, go to your sister to convalesce. A little niece I had 7 years old used to take me for a walk. And one day when she came back, she said to her mother, Mommy, because Auntie Joyce has to go back to Guyana. She has qualifications and she can get a job and she can live with us. She took it by surprise. Her mother got smacked. And the mother said, well, this child is right. Because you look after us, and what is, this is how I was. At that stage, all I was interested in was getting better. But this little mite said to me, you can go and teach. And that little mite sent me to the inner London to apply for a job. So I come here then in 1972, and I get the interview. He said, have you had any illness yet? They appointed me to this boys' school. When I turned up Drummond Road, it was Scott Boy Comprehensive School, Drummond Road, Bermondsey. And I turned up that morning, and the watchman was directing me to the kitchen. I said, no, I found the teacher. And so I put in Mr. Pritchard, nice man, Mr. Pritchard, and then but my first thing is, I'm sitting, there was only one other woman on the staff, and she taught drama. And I'm sitting in the class, and she did something, and she wrote HORSPITAL for hospital. And I said, well, you know, But eventually I got my own class, right? And these boys, they would come to my room. But they would come, I didn't have to go, they would come to my room, I would be with them. But before that, the first lesson I had, you know me, I think in English school, I gave them a little assignment, and I said, well, write, they sat in groups. And I said, write a paragraph of that. And one answer was troubled, how do you spell your name? And I kindly wrote my name. You see my one-to-one group? The paper with a penis. Oh! And they said, I love you, Miss Trotman, will you do it to me? Before I picked it up, I wanted, Miss Trotman, it looked, but I grabbed it before they could get back. At least I said, I love you. Okay, that was it. And the next time this other class coming, I don't know what I said to him, I couldn't understand. There were 2 black ones at the back, all the rest were. And I did. I don't know what I said here. He took the nice and said, you fucking black ones. When I'm 45, and then the ball hit me, I can manage. So I said, Michael, pens down. Acting, teaching is acting. Yes. Michael, pens down. I said, Michael, I'm black, I'm beautiful, I've come to teach you your English, and I'm not going anywhere. I say, but the F and the C, I am not, don't you dare call me that again. The 2 at the back put their thumbs up, and I ignored them. Because it was a match between me and my company. And I said, get on now, and that was it. I didn't grab him by his neck and carry the headmaster and make a big, you could have made a big, he could have been expelled. But he's a child, and he heard the adults saying it and he's trying it out. Right? Next time he came, Miss, can I lend a pen? Well, we used to have some cheap ones. No, Miss, they can't write this. So I just lent him my pen. You know what was the routine? Whenever he came, I got to leave my pen in the drawer. He look at me, he pick up his pen, he do his work, he put it, say, Thomas, and he's gone. There was one time when he couldn't understand anything, and he pushed me to one side of the chair and sat there near me. This is the same Michael. And he said, and he said, oh, miss. And I taught them, and they left. Well, after he left, I had a little first year came up to me and said, did I remember Michael Stacy? I got to meet Michael again and hug him. I met Michael. He said, did you know? I said, yes. He said, Michael said he was the best teacher he had. I'm teaching a referral class. This was when any misbehave, they send your class to withdraw. And the boys started out singing, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like before the niggers came. Wow. Well, I let him sing. I'm not a nigger. I let him sing. And nothing happened. If you don't recognize it, it doesn't happen. Right? And but I had problem. I won't say problem. They didn't know where I had come from. You're white, you're not black, you're a woman, and you're in a boys' school, in elementary. And they didn't know, and I didn't let out where I came from. I just come and I teach it. One of them came up to me one day and said that they met one of my ex-students, and they wanted to know what Joyce Trotman teaching in a comprehensive school. Because for the simple reason, by the time I got there, I had a degree. I had a certificate of education, both from Newcastle and from Leicester. I was the first class teacher. And 10 years of teacher training behind me. So, but they did not know this, and I did not let on this, except that on the tweet, and one little boy came to me one day and said, Ms. Trotman, are you the brainiest teacher? Very nice. And then I had a lovely class at Tutor Group. And when I got in, while I was there, I had done research at the University of Guyana, and I had material. I was working towards a master's in linguistics. But I could only go to Lancaster in the holidays because I was ill. But then I got the degree and I had to go to the degree ceremony, so I was absent. So next morning when I said, Miss, where are you? Where we have to bring a sick note? Where is your sick note?
Fresh.
So the next morning I said to them, it's not a sick note. And I took the papers and I showed them. They don't know anything beyond beneath O level. You gotta explain that you got something beyond. He said, then you don't know them to pretend it? But that's a rhetorical question, you don't answer it. And that was it. But I would have from a certain members of the staff. And one day, and I think their training is coming very handy, because they don't know where it's going. Well, when I became head of remedial there, so I didn't have to shoot the group. But when you got this children coming, he doesn't realize that for each child, you got to plan a program for each one. So when they come, this is his program. So it takes time to prepare, but they don't understand that. So because I didn't have a tutor group about this, I was no extra playground duty. In the middle of the staff room, with my thumb in my cheek, I said, extra playground duty? I said, I am come here for the peace walk. If I had come here for the peace walk, I would have gone for the building site. And I walked up and stuff. No one wasn't. But when we had the formal staff meeting, headmaster's there, and the new system is there, and the mother came up of my house, and I just calmly said, in my best Bishop's High School cutlass English, I do appreciate the enthusiasm with which the newly appointed senior teacher has undertaken his job. I said, but I will not allow a Latter-day Obadiah Slow to be telling me how I should be doing my job.
And I left it up. And I dropped that and walked out of the meeting. So the next day, yeah, that's it. So the next day, Barry told that and Joyce, I heard you been quoting Shakespeare and stuff. I said, no. Anthony Schroeder, the warden, who read it.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's it.
So
But I thought,
so-
I'm not it.
yeah.
And it was nice after that.
Okay. I've got one final question.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I
come back.
just wanted to tell people here another prank that they played on us. Those foreign people who come to their country and having their jobs. As I said, I was trained in Tunbridge Wells, and I was only about 90-something pounds when I came here. Quite different to what it is now. But they said, I got sick, very sick. I was thin, getting thinner. I didn't have any hot combs to do anything with your hair. But thank God I had my parents in London. And they really saved my makeup. Because as I said, they kept their eyes on me. One thing that I couldn't, because I was feeling so unwell all the time, and I would end in the sick bay. When Sister did her rounds, what are you doing here? What are you doing here in the sick bay? You know, put me here, you know, pyrexia temperature, what have you, I'm actually here. But then they said, oh well, you know, there's work out there to be done. When are you going to get out of this place? And I said, well, I just feel so awful. And that's when I asked for Mum. I said, please, can you get my mum to come to see me because I'm not feeling very well. And I was at a point when I really wanted to give up. So I said, Mum came, and you don't think about using bad language, but she had preceded me to this country, so she got to know what was actually going on. And by then she was pretty well equipped with language and what have you. And she said, look, this girl has always wanted to be a nurse. Give her a chance, for God's sake, and don't F with my daughter. Really. They soon understood that. And she's just hungry, she's just tired, give her some opportunity.
Maybe homesick.
Yeah, homesick. Homesick. And the other thing they used to do with me, they'd stick me on night duty. And I could never get off this night duty. And you think everybody's got a 6 week stint on night duty. I am praying for night duty to finish. When the list goes up, you're on the same ward with that miserable sister, who was always saying to me, you've got potential that you don't use. How do you know that I've got potential if I'm not showing it? But she had to find some sort of excuse to tell me. And my mother said to me, look, I'll sort you out. What you need to do, you're just hungry, you're just tired, and I want you to stay on. And you'll get there in the end. And those words really resounded to me now, so much older. You stay put. And that's when she promised me this trip to Barbados. If you do your exams and you'll get the trip to Barbados. And I did. And I went and I did my midwifery, and I thought, yes, I'm on a roll here. And that's how I got. But they really. And of course, me so silly. Well, not silly. I wasn't aware of racism or what it was.
Yeah, you just
It was
didn't.
a start.
You didn't
I had
know.
no
You just
problem. I didn't know. I had no
Yeah.
problem with the, especially the young boys. I was placed on a pediatric orthopedic ward. The boys are quite healthy and they just crap all day, what have you. But it wasn't a problem with the boys and my other, if you see the photograph out there. There were several of us that came from other places. But we got on very well. But it was the staff of the hospital who really wanted, you know, to keep,
grind you down.
And I didn't realize what was happening because there were two girls in another year from Guadeloupe and Martinique. They got the better of them. They left. And I think I could have been in their shoe had I not got my parents here, you know, who put a protective arm around me and told those people to And but it was a determination to keep their hospital pure.
So can I ask you, things that you know, everything that you've contributed to the NHS, but also the way you've been treated by the NHS, how did you feel when you heard about the Windrush Scandal, and given that people who'd served were then now being denied citizenship or deported or put in detention? How did you feel about that?
Awful. And I still think, you know, that they're very unfairly treated, really. And I think that given that we have done so much to keep the NHS going, without us coming at that time, you know, whether you were a nursing assistant or whatever, you know, we kept that NHS going. And then to be so ungrateful, the word I use, to say, oh, you gotta get that.
But how does that make you feel about your own, you know, because as somebody who'd been in a colony, you've been brought up to see yourself as British, and yet you're being treated in this way by the state. How does that kind of make you feel about your own identity?
Personally, I have to say that anything that I wanted to do, and I asked my sister or what have you, I got what I wanted. Really, in terms of further training, I got that. But it's my colleagues or my associates who haven't had the success. The NHS have been very good to me personally.
What do you think is the secret of your success then?
I think I just wanted to move on, and I wanted to do things, and I wanted to explore. And I wanted to help my community. And I think essentially that's what it was about.
It just kept you going,
Yes,
and not giving up.
Motivated me, I just wanted to move on. So I did all the things, you know, I went to Wales and did my degree in genetics. As I said, midwifery, state registration, and then to end up with the qualification to enable me to do genetic counseling. I was the very first person, black person, to have been introduced to the genetic counseling, but never had it.
Is that what you received your MBE for?
Yes, right. And there's a huge article in the local paper. This one is so helpful. So it was Sickle Cell.
So mostly both in the footsteps of WT.
Yes.
That's your point.
She was the first black matron. Definitely still.
And there's a plaque of her at where St James Hospital used to be.
Oh, yes.
In Belfast, yeah.
Blue plaque, the blue plaque.
The blue plaque of her, yeah.
Just conscious of time, and I just wanted to ask you, Auntie Joyce, because obviously you had your 96th birthday on the 22nd of obviously you've lived through the most extraordinary kind of global changes. And, you know, obviously you've gone through being a child of empire, from citizen of the Commonwealth, and then in your own words, you said you went from that to being a foreigner and an immigrant. So again, you know, I just want to pose the same question to you. How did you feel when you heard about the Windrush Scandal? And how do
I
they
don't
feel
think the
about it?
word is applicable as a printer.
Those words that you
I don't
use.
think the word is
It's not that Jesus.
Oh! You mean it was even my Okay. All right. So I think we get the general idea.
Because I think it was so dishonest.
Yeah.
No, it was dishonest. And they're still being dishonest. And they're talking about reparation. The first thing they should be doing is to repeal the 1962 Immigration Act and give us back the rights that we have. But now we're here to say that about how you don't need these anymore. That's what they're saying.
Yes, but then that's not really true either. It's not really true.
And everybody's talking about reparation. This, before, when the people came, so beautifully dressed, the English people come take, I mean, they were starving wearing suit, the boys come up, they started starving wearing suit, the boys came up with, the little girl in her glove.
Yes, so beautiful.
They were beautifully turned out.
Oh,
Yeah.
They didn't come like stragglers. No. And that was taking a crop,
Yeah.
you know, and at that stage, you were not immigrants,
Yeah.
you were British citizens holding a British passport under the British Nationality Act. And then they turn around and say, we got 2 million black votes around it. And by act of parliament, they convert you into a foreigner. So when they're talking reparation, no matter how much money they had, they still think that you're a foreigner. What they need to do, the first thing they need to do is repeal that 1962 Commonwealth Immigrants Act. Because when who was it now? I can't remember his name. When it happened, Dennis Healy promised them that when a new if the Labour government came in, they would repeal it. Wilson did not honor it.
No.
No, the Labour Party.
Right.
Just
Wilson did
bad.
not.
Exactly.
Wilson did not. They talk about reparation.
Yeah.
But our status. I had to sign to get nationality act. My great-grandfather Ben Conrad blood in this country. Your great-grandfather blood in this country. Like the little boy said, and why don't you go back to your own country? I said, let me tell you something. My father worked for this, and I said, this is my country, and I have come to get my inheritance. So what I did, I went down the staff room. And then I told him, I said, guess what that little one said to me? And I just told him that I have come to my inheritance and I take that if I don't know. If you think that, I give you the message too. Right? Our blood is in this country. And then you're going to tell me, I don't care how much money they give as reparation. They still think it's reparation. And that's to satisfy them. As far as I can see, the repeal of that 1962 Commonwealth Immigration Act. And we would go back to the British Nationality Act in which we each get out. And
I often wonder if anybody's actually looked at the impact of that act on the
exactly,
community.
nobody's talking about that.
Because when I think about like E.R. Brathwaite, who wrote To Sir with Love, he chose to leave Britain at that time because he was so hurt by that shift from being British to being
Give us the money, if this is how their own consciences. They give us the money, say, I'll take that. But they still think of us as not. And they have to hand us back of what they stole from us, converted us into foreigners, when our blood is in this country. So that's why I don't discuss reparation money. because I don't think that the money is in. They can easily find the money. And this is what should be done. This is what our people should be. I know they're going to cancel me for saying it. But I don't
I went to a reparations meeting over the weekend because the all-party parliamentary group have now set up an African reparations group with Bel Ribeiro Addy. And the main crux of it is not about money. It's about education, making sure that Black history is integrated into education. It's about all kinds of different things.
All of that.
All of that.
It's boxes. You still ain't getting it. Boxes and extra.
Yeah.
The main thing is our how they see us.
No,
They still see us as foreigners. And we are not. Our blood, the blood of our forefathers is in this country to that hill. And unless they repeal that 1962 Commonwealth Immigrants Act, I don't want to hear from them.
Wow. Shirley, would you like the final word?
You start somewhere, and I don't think you will get I don't think you will get your dream. But what I'm very, very heartened to hear about you, because until we got those working parties set up in Parliament when Diane was around. And things really started to move so using the society as a model, you know, I think we will go on fighting and fighting to get to it. But I don't think you'll get it.
All of those are good. I'm not saying wonderful, but the basis is. You know what is happening now? It is like what is happening. It's like what is happening in the situation with Israel and Palestine. That the second half of the Balfour Declaration, if we clearly understood that nothing should be done that will jeopardize the civil and religious rights of the non-Jewish community. Nobody is voting that. In the same way, and we are getting all these, what's happening? We're getting, reparation money and so, but nobody is saying that we should do something about the 1952.
That's a whole other different session. We have to.
Sorry, there are lots of people who came around the time that I came. 42 years I gave to the NHS, and there's so many of my colleagues who've done very much the same thing. And if we're not going to get this repeal going, I say, give us the money. But let us determine how we're going to use it.
No, this is interesting because they were talking about how maybe we could look at how the Windrush Scandal had been responded to, how the compensation scheme had been worked, and that would inform what you don't want to do. Because the compensation scheme has been handled obviously appallingly, so it could inform them. But I have to, I'm really sorry,